Hey guys, what's up? This is Nephis here, and it's time to Nephis and chill. And in this video today, I'm going to be going over the class representative meeting that was held yesterday with the ZeniMax Online Studios developers in regards to PTS feedback from Update 24 Dragonhold, the Dragonhold public test server. As always, thank you guys so much for your feedback in providing me with your pain points and so forth for that meeting. And the second thing I want to talk about, which is relevant to the meeting yesterday and also relevant to what pretty much everyone has been talking about, is class identity. This article, the developer deep dive into class identity in ESO. And this was written by the gameplay lead, Rob Garrett. And they're basically, in this article, going over, hey, this is how we define class identity, power, fantasy, play patterns. Here's how we define those, like the feel of a skill. Play patterns are also a thing they discuss here. So you can read through this. I'll leave a link down in the description because the main focus of this video is going to be about the class representative meeting. But it was an interesting read, at least for me. Basically, in summary, I think the most important parts are pretty much at the conclusion where they summarize it, if you don't want to read the whole thing. What we don't want is to create scenarios where, to be effective, you, the player, feel obligated to fill a majority of your hotbar slots with non-class abilities. Forfeiting your class identity should be an option, but not a requirement to engage in PvE or PvP content. And they also sort of talked about the difference between viability and optimization as well in regards to class kits for, when they're talking about how they want every class to be able to tank, heal, and DPS to a certain degree. So I think that was an interesting thing to mention as well. But anyway, they're basically saying here, okay, we know what's going on, and we acknowledge this is not the current reality for many classes and builds. It's one of the major areas for improvement we intend to tackle. Okay, and they sort of just kind of go over the examples of it. We consider these changes to be stopgap measures while the team evaluates more holistic improvements for improvements for each class in the future. We're not ready yet to share details on those long-term efforts, so pretty much wait it out. They're just asking for trust, and that's pretty much it. What's being said here, and that they're still going to be working on it, and they just pretty much go over what they think class identity is, and it was a good sort of clarification for some players, because I think a lot of people definitely do have different definitions of what a class identity, or what class identity is. Is it giving a class their own spammable? Is it giving a class your own purge, stuff like that? So it was a good article to read, but overall it's like kind of just wait. Now moving on to the class representative meeting we had on the 25th of September yesterday about the Dragonhold PTS. So just to clarify, I am not going to be talking about what the developer responses were or whatever, because that's of course under the non-disclosure agreement, the NDA. But I will be able to tell you guys about what we brought up, and this is a list of pretty much what we touched on. Some things were of course stressed over the others because it was like, a pretty short meeting, and in my opinion it was actually definitely a slightly productive meeting despite its short duration, in my opinion. So hopefully they do take the feedback. Now there's things on and not on the list that were touched on as well, but I'll leave that up to the future. And I think a lot of people actually asked me, I think today, how do you collect feedback, or who do you collect it from? The other class reps and I have a lot of sources or servers, or some of us do our own PTS testing and so forth. But generally, for me, speaking for myself only, I am in a lot of Discord servers. I'm even in the Reddit Discord server, where I do have a feedback channel that Wohler was kind enough to make for me, and that's where you can also find me. I'm in PvE rating discords. I'm in a few PvP discords for ESO. I'm in casual social like guilds and trade guild discord. And so I have a lot of feedback coming to me. Also through my personal Discord, as like there's a lot of stuff that I have to sift through. I also do go to the official ESO forums and look through the class rep thread feedback on everything from Dragon Knight to Werewolf. I just kind of read through everything. Every time someone posts something, I track everything. Besides those sources, I also do look at what other people are saying, on their YouTube channels, Twitch streams. I pretty much get feedback from everywhere. And before this meeting, I did make a public, open, like a Google document for everyone to add their pain points and feedback to. Obviously, not everything could make it, or rather, some things were not really relevant to the discussion about the PTS changes. So if you don't see your change on here, it's probably because it was either discussed already with the developers, or it wasn't really relevant to what we were going to discuss in the meeting, which was mostly about the public test server for Dragonhold Update 24. So the summary of negatives, I am going to be telling you guys I'm pretty much going to be reading this off, because for the most part, a lot of it was brought up, but I'll tell you guys which ones were specifically stressed by myself and the other class reps in the meeting. So the summary of negatives: to change to major vulnerability where it only applies on the last hit. That was brought up by us, and of course the whole thing about stacking stamina necromancers having no for like more high-end groups. I don't really see stam crews being used in mid-tier raid teams or like progression groups really. So the feedback about the PvE meta is mostly about the endgame community or the endgame teams that use stam crews. So, but that's still a problem. Stacking like 8 to 9 stam crews, that was brought up. The change to major vulnerability was brought up. The sustained disparity between Magicka builds and stamina builds, where Magicka builds really are suffering from what I've seen on the PTS and from what I've seen of other people testing on the PTS. The sustained disparity is pretty big. It's far easier in both PvP and PvE on the PTS to sustain on the stamina DPS or stamina spec for PvP or something like that. And of course, one of the biggest changes was the dot change, the dot nerf, which very controversial for everybody. So this was brought up for sure, obviously, and we'll see what happens. The change fatigue on a lot of the player base. This was another huge point that was brought up and stressed. Even for people who are doing content creation, it's not fun, right? I think everyone watching this video can definitely agree with me. Every 3 months, changing up everything, changing up the investment you made on your character or characters, relearning a rotation, relearning your build, class, the game, essentially every 3 months is gonna get pretty tiring. And I think a lot of people are feeling it more and more this time around since update 22. So it's like, yeah, it's a pretty important point to bring up, I think. So far I haven't really run into people who like say they're happy that it changes to like the pat or the meta or whatever changes up frequently. So I don't know. But yeah, that's a pretty big point. A lot of people have been telling me, oh, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go to a different game. I'm going to take a break or whatever, because this is too much. Like this is like not really worth my time. So this was stressed. The Necromancer in PvP and PvE, feeling pretty bad in terms of combat play was brought up. Let's see. Stone Fist, of course, that's a pretty big one. This was brought up. The Power to Light, Purifying Light shouldn't crit and get amps from allies. This was brought up as well by the reps. But yeah, again, like everything on this list was pretty much touched on or stressed. And if you guys want to read this, I do have it on my website. I also have the link down in my description below the video to the forum thread that Glory posted this on. And that'll be pretty much it. So if you guys have any questions, feedback, comments, or whatever, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll be happy to get to you when I can. But just letting you guys know, just giving you an update, because I think a lot of people think the class rep program is useless or not transparent enough. This is sort of my effort to show you guys, hey, we are trying to do stuff for the community and help everyone out. So that's pretty much it. But again, if you have anything to add or ask questions about, let me know down in the comments below. And as always, guys, thanks for Nefis and chilling, and stay safe, have fun, and I will see you next time.